Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one stop podcast for students, professionals, parents, and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance, and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S. Mishra, to the show, and happy listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on India Career Center podcast. Today, I'm really happy to welcome a fantastic guest, Kaushik Bose, who does one podcast called The Brain Box, uh, which is very interesting. The name itself is so interesting. And I happened to come across Kaushik Bose through one of the groups, and going through his interesting journey, I thought, why not actually host Kaushik as a guest? It's kind of reversal of the role, so to speak. So welcome, Kaushik. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for investing your time with us. So during this conversation, we'll try to learn more about you. So you're going to speak a lot rather than listening to the guest speakers, which you normally do. So to start with, let's go through your introduction first. Can I request you to take us through your professional journey? And
Sure.
maybe you
So,
can start from your early days so that it'll be interesting to connect with people. I think ultimately, I think stories are what make it interesting for others to learn and connect. Over to you.
so, first of all, thank you so much for hosting me on the show. As you rightly mentioned, it's really fun to be on the other side. Uh, but there's one thing I need to warn you in advance. I do talk a lot, so you need to be careful.
That's very
So,
good.
jokes aside, so basically, now that you've so usually when people ask me, like tell me about yourself, the first thing I tell them is that be careful. This is going to be a long answer. So the good thing is you're already asking for the long version of it. So
Yes.
I was actually interestingly born in Lagos, Nigeria. My dad used to travel a lot, so I was there. Then I came back to Delhi. So I did my schooling from Delhi. Then again moved to Abu Dhabi for 6 years. Did my 11th and 12th back to Delhi. Then did my engineering from Bangalore, MBA from MDI Gurgaon. Worked then the first company on campus was Wipro. So I got into Wipro, pure sales. Uh, Interestingly, again, an interesting story. So what happened is the when Wipro came to campus, they came in looking for six people, six roles, and all the six were in marketing. So the lady, so she has come on my show also, Preeti Kataria. So she was the Wipro HR person that time who came into the campus, and she came in and she interviewed me, and she's like that, what do you want to do? Do you want to do sales or do you want to do marketing? And this, I think, is something very relevant because part of the India Career Center, you actually mentor. So it's very interesting anecdote. So she came and asked me, what do you want to do? And I was like, kuch bhi chalega. So what happens is, you don't, because it happened to me during the internship. So in one of the companies, they asked me, what do you want, sales or do you want operations? I said, I want sales. And then they said, sorry, but we came only for operations, so we can't take you. So keeping that in mind, I'm like, no commitment. So she asked me 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, kuch bhi chalega, doesn't matter. So interesting. Then she finished the interview, and she's like, okay. So I came out of the room, and she also went out of the room to call someone. And we had our senior. He was in the part of the interview panel as well. So he comes out and tells everybody that, you know what, guys, if somebody asks you that if you want sales or you want marketing, don't say kuch bhi chalega. Be specific. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is gone. But anyway, it was a. So, what actually happened is she went out of the room and she called the regional manager in Delhi asking that
Mhm.
you wanted a guy in sales. And I have a good candidate. I don't know what she saw in me, but anyway, so she's like, I have a good candidate. Do you want to, if you want, I can hire him. And he said, why not? So they actually came back after that and they announced six roles in marketing, which was original plan. And these were all with Wipro Technologies. And I was the only one they took for Wipro Infotech
Mm.
in a sales role. And that's how my career in sales started. So then it was all B2B, Wipro, SAB, IBM. Then again, the tax-free money lured us. So we went back to GBM, which is basically IBM in the Gulf in Dubai. So it's total of 14 years across corporates. Then in 2017, me and my wife, we decided, okay, let's do something back in India. The startup bug bit us. So we came back. I started a mobile repairing and refurbishing startup. So Arpita, my wife, she started a salon business. So after which we sold it off. So I sold off mine in 21, early 21, and she also sold it just after the COVID times. And that's how the podcasting started because I didn't know what to do. And I am one of those kinds, कि वो कीड़ा है, you have to do something to stay busy. So I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. So he was mentioning that you should start a podcast. It's something, you'll help with your personal branding, this, that. So I said, okay, why not? So I told Arpita, why don't we start it? And before I knew what happened, she gifted me this particular mic.
Okay.
And I was like, "Arey, why are you spending money? I don't even know whether I'm going to be actually using it or not." And she's like, koi nahi, take it as a gift from my side. Ash karo. So that's how it started. I didn't expect it to go so well, very frankly. It was just a passion project. Now we are on episode 81.
Fantastic.
22, in 2022, Spotify voted us as the ninth best podcast across India, across 1800 plus podcasts. And interestingly, the growth has been good. So 23 May we added about 93% of our current audience has joined us in 23.
Hmm.
So it's doing pretty well.
Great. So quite a few stories in that. And I think you must talk about your first venture about the mobile repair. That's a very interesting story. I think you should tell about that.
So we started the thing because in Gurgaon, there seemed to be a gap of a premium kind of a mobile repairing. So we initially started it off as a normal mobile repairing store.
Hmm.
Uh, then what we realized is like we were getting both Android and Apple, but most of the people would start comparing us with, like the local shop. So for example, let's say an Android phone would cost about $1,500 for a screen repair. Because we're giving a very nice ambience, comfort, seats, etc. So we used to charge, let's say, 2,500.
Hmm.
And then what we realized is people were like, but that guy's giving 1,500. Why are you charging 2,500? I'm like, मतलब कुछ और भी तो होगा ना, see the entire thing. So many of them, we were not able to convert quite a few initially.
Hmm.
And what we realized is that the headache is insane. Because
Hmm.
if someone of that type gives you $2,500, he's just going to eat your head out after that. So then we realized, and this is the same. So I was in B2B business. So what I realized in B2B or B2C, sardard equal hota hai,
Hmm.
irrespective of the value of the deal. So that's when we decided to double down on the premium devices. So we automatically moved. We only started handling iPhones, OnePlus, Samsung. That's it. When we started that business, so the same thing, like I'm saying 1,500, which we were charging 2,500. What started happening was that because we were only in premium phones, we increased that price to 3,000.
Oh, okay.
And people still came to us very happily
Hmm.
because now we were only dealing with a premium client. So this is something that brand positioning, etc., is something that I realized because before that I was always in pure sales, never to do anything in marketing. So this was a good, insightful experience. When we started this, in about 6 months, we realized that there are many people coming to us and saying that, we have an old phone which is not working and I don't want to fix it.
Hmm.
At the same time, we were getting people who came up to us and said that I am looking for an old phone because the
Okay.
other phone, let's say like the motherboard or something is conked. So it's virtually a waste of money. So they have to buy a new phone. So they started coming to us. Then we realized that why don't we get into the refurbishing business? So
Hmm.
that's how we got into the refurbished business. So what we started doing is we used to buy out the like somebody's, so just for numbers. So for example, if someone is saying and we give a cost of let's say 5,000. By the way, the margins in this business are excellent. So if
Hmm.
we are giving a cost of 5,000, maybe our price would be close to 3,000 maximum. So then that person would say, no, I don't want to spend 5,000. You take it from me, and we would probably give him $1,000 for it. So $1,000, $3,000 for fixing it, and we would sell the same phone close to 9, 10,000.
Wow.
So our margins increased significantly. People came to know that yes, we are dealing with good refurbished phones, and we used to, since it was an offline store, we were able to give a warranty on top of it. So that was a very good business. Then we realized there's another gap, especially in Gurgaon, at least in 2017-18, was that there was nobody for iWatches
Okay.
for repair. And
Hmm.
again, iWatches, the market was immense, especially in Gurgaon. So
Hmm.
you will get a repair comfortably. If you go to an Apple store, they will charge you around 15,000-16,000 for it.
Wow.
So what we used to do is, and the actual cost that used to happen in Nehru Place used to be 3,000.
Okay.
So what we did is we say we'll play in the middle. So we used to take it at 7,000. We used to go to Nehru Place, get it fixed. They used to give us a warranty at the back end. We used to come and give it to the client. Simple model. So that's how we got into the refurbished business. So we tested out all of this within a year's time. We became profitable. We were a small team, 4-5 of us were there. And then we realized, so we started franchising it. So
Hmm.
that's when the sales helped. And of course, it was a profitable model. So it made a lot of sense. So we started franchising. We franchised 15 outlets in a span of 3 years across NCR.
Fantastic.
And after that, then in the meanwhile, happens you want to grow still bigger. So we started the startup trying to search for funding. So
Hmm.
that was a big learning. So many people actually came back to us, many of the investors, etc., saying that while you are you've got great numbers, you're profitable, etc., the problem seems to be that you are not a techie. So you are
Oh.
a sales guy, but your co-founder, anybody else is not there who's a techie person.
Hmm.
So I guess it's a view they have. There's no right or wrong. So for
Hmm.
whatever reasons, we could not raise funding, and which is why I decided that the amount of headache, etc., that happens with this, so might as well. So we got a good offer also from one of the larger mobile repair chains.
Okay.
So it was a good offer. I said, why not? I mean, if you're getting 24-30 months of profit in one shot, might as well take it. So that's when we sold it off. So they took it, then they rebranded the whole thing as Refo. So they just bought out the whole business and then they expanded nationally post that.
Oh, okay. And at that point of time, you never thought of expanding to other areas geographically, or you wanted to take the funding and after that you wanted to grow?
Exactly. So two reasons. So one, you're right, is the primarily the funding piece,
Hmm.
because as soon as you move outside NCR, the operational cost goes very high.
Hmm.
So here, the problem with the particular mobile repairing line is that the amount of to maintain the quality becomes very paramount,
Okay.
because many of these technicians also, they're very smart. They're going to get in fudgy screens, like a
Hmm.
duplicate of that, and they're just going to swap it without you even knowing it. So it
Hmm.
was a whole control of inventory, etc., having cameras. So it was a very big headache on the kind of scale you get.
Hmm.
And what we also understood is that even if you have a franchise, they don't understand this concept that you have
Hmm.
to actually monitor. So what they think is, I've taken a franchise, now it'll run on its own.
Hmm.
So these were things that we realized, and yes, you're absolutely right. So the main plan was to take it and then go national. Uh, but then, as I mentioned, so
And hindsight, do you think, I mean, if you had started the startup instead of Gurgaon in a place like Bangalore, for example, you would have had a different experience about it?
uh, honestly, probably in Gurgaon, there was a huge supply demand gap.
Okay.
So that
Hmm.
worked in my favor. Second is, in Gurgaon, people tend to be a little more dikhawa.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So we've had customers who came in, that time the iPhone, I think 11 had just launched. So they
Okay.
came in literally and said, sorry, the XS was launched. So they
Okay.
came in and said, I want the highest model
Hmm.
and I don't care. This is the amount. And literally they came and they used to come and just put a bundle of cash on the table and say, I don't know, I don't care. I want this particular model.
Right.
So this is something that you will not get in Bangalore. The second point is also that it was the demand. So for example, my wife, she was into a salon space. So many of her employees, they would actually come and everyone was like, Arey, I need an iPhone in my hand. So
Mm.
that's the reason. So this, I think, culture is very, very prevalent in the north, at least in CR.
Mm.
So I think Gurgaon especially was even better, because in Delhi and all, you still have the option of going to a Nehru place and getting things, which
Mm.
many people
Mm.
don't, but you still have the option. But in Gurgaon, there's absolutely nothing. You only have the Apple store, or you have, the local stores.
So, post that, you tried a few other things also as a entrepreneur,
Yeah, so basically, after, in the meanwhile, my wife was running her salon, so she had opened two in Gurgaon itself.
right?
So after selling out this, again, had to do something. So I basically convinced her to carve out a nail salon piece. So
Mm.
instead of franchising the whole salon, because by now I knew about how to franchise, and operationally she was excellent. So she was very good in hiring. She was very good in running the operations, customer centricity, everything. So that's how we just carved out the nail salon piece. So that was able to cut down so instead of, let's say, 1,000 square feet area, you're just able to do it in a 150, 200 square feet place. And
Mm.
then we started franchising just the nail salon. It was called the Nail Garage.
Okay.
And so we launched it. We franchised in three cities in 3 months successively.
Okay.
And it was then, so we were in fact on the verge of launching our own product range as well. And that
Mm.
is when COVID hit.
Oh, okay.
So everything just went for a tailspin, left, right, center. The three franchises, they also started struggling. And that's when my wife, so she was, like, I don't want to do this right now. So let's just hold on for a bit. Let's run our stores for a while, and then
Mm.
we'll see. So that's how that's the gap which happened. So which is when I was like, okay, let's not, I mean, it's her baby, let her handle it. And that's how, again, I got into podcasting. And actually, one of the key reasons that
Mm.
Brainbox is focused around leadership is that this stint where I was working with her, I realized that leadership is something which is probably a gap that exists. So I have led teams, sales teams, and everything in the past, but I feel the empathy factor was very low.
Mm.
It was more around just getting numbers done. And I used to see her doing it in her salon. So that's where the realization came that there's a huge gap. And
Right.
then I also realized that if this gap is with me, there are many others who are just like me. So
Agreed.
that's why the entire podcast was focused around leadership, and that's where it started from. So that actually led from there. After that, of course, Brainbox was running. In the meantime, then I had a MDI batchmate of mine. He
Mm.
had a startup in Bangalore. So Feb, yeah, so 22. So he then told me that why don't you come in and join as chief business officer. So it was in deep tech. They were funded by Bloom. So spent a year with him, fixing GTM model, all the operationally getting everything under control. After a year, I joined another MDA batchmate of mine. He was introducing a category creator within the EP space. So
Okay.
that's how I joined him for a year. And then I realized, it's now time to do something on your own.
Mm.
So that's how I got into. So now I'm currently consulting. So I started a podcasting agency as well. I launched a course just last week. Or was it this week? Just launched it about,
Mm.
again, podcasting itself, 101. It's a basic course. So we have now got something called Brainbox Gurukul, which is more around
Mm.
the academy front, which will have more courses and training and stuff like that. And of course, the consulting continues for GTM and marketing and so on. So staying busy.
Great. And before we move on to the podcasting part of it, what are your chief learnings from the entrepreneurial journey? If you can list out some of them.
I think the biggest is that you should fail,
Mm.
because especially in sales, what happens is like you don't, I mean, you do lose deals, but it happens that you want to win each and every one.
Mm.
And again, very interesting anecdote. So when I was in Wipro, I had so one of my mentors there, so he connected me with somebody in Sun. So I went in there for the interview, and this is like I was a newbie, like, just about starting with Wipro, a year and a half, I think. And then I went there, and I'm like, so the guy, apparently turned out that he was also from MDI, and his
Mm.
wife was from RB College.
Okay.
So we were able to strike a chord, everything, had a great interview. At the end, he asked me that, so Kaushik, tell me something. Have you ever lost a deal? I said, no. And to be honest, I was very cocky about it. I was like, no. And he's like, so you know what you should do is you should lose a deal. And then we'll connect because you have the thing potential, but right now it's not right. And I'm like, "Matlab, if you don't want me, just tell me, man, why are you making stories?" But I mean, so I came out that time saying, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. But later on, so interestingly, the very first deal I lost uh, was again a big company in Gurgaon. And I had a great relation with the client. So basically we were the front runners. We should have won it. And interestingly, this time I was already in IBM. So I had left Wipro. Uh, yeah, I don't remember actually fighting and losing any deal in Wipro or in SAP. So in both these two were very good. So in IBM, this deal was like almost a done deal. And on the last day, so I'm like, it's there in my commit, the weekly commits happen. And I'm like, it's a done deal. Boss, don't worry. And then he calls me. I still remember it was in the IBM software group ground floor. He calls me and says, "Ki yaar, Kaushik, sorry, we did not go with Cognos, we went with ClickView." And I'm like, "Kaisi baat kar rahe ho? What are you saying?" And he's like, "See, it's not in my hand, right? I just said it." I said, "No, you should have told me. How can this happen?" So he's like, "This is not right, like I told you initially, matlab, the Oracle guys, when I told him, he took it nicely, you're losing it completely." I was like thoroughly pissed for a while. And then it took me, I think, about 3-4 hours before I calmed down and, like, sort of told him, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And interestingly, despite all my apologies, when I actually went and personally invited him for my wedding. So that's when it struck me that, to be humble at the time of defeat or a failure is super critical.
Mm.
So definitely this is one. So when I think it's with the education system as well. You want to be first in class, you want to be the first in the race. It's changing a lot, I think, from our times. So I'm 44, so born in the 70s. So a lot has changed from then. But yes, I still think the thing is there. So startups, the best thing about it is that they're able to, entrepreneurship in general, is that
Mm.
you are going to learn a lot. You're going
Yeah.
to make a ton of mistakes. So when me and my wife, we entered this space, we were the first generation entrepreneurs. Nobody in either of our families, nobody to guide us. So we actually spent money on the wrong things, and that's where the learning happened, which is probably paying off today. So had
Mm.
we not invested in marketing and trying out multiple things, so probably today I could not have told you, yes, offline marketing is not as effective as online. Now, because we didn't try a premium brand and we did lose money initially, we don't know. That's how I realized the power of branding.
Mm.
So I think it's a must. So you have to learn to. I think that is the biggest. The second, I think, is that you need to balance work, success with mental wellness.
Mm.
And
Very
when I'm saying
important.
mental wellness, I mean as a whole. So it'll include a physical and mental well-being, if I can call it. Like, so my wife, she's a certified yoga instructor for 2 decades. When we were in Dubai, that's when she did her certified. So she became a certified sports nutritionist as well from Stanford. And she was into it. I wasn't. And I was always like, let's work, 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 like as much as you can. And then I slowly realized during the thing also. So there was actually, we were working so hard because we were both running our own businesses. And at one point it came that, you have to balance it out, because if you take a
Mm.
break, so so when we went on our anniversary is something that is paramount for us.
Mm.
So even then she told her salon folks, so I had told my guys and I had switched off my phone, and she told her folks, don't call me in the afternoon. So she was, I think, there till in the after 3 o'clock or something, and then we moved around 4:30. So she switched on her phone, I think, to make a payment, and the phone started ringing.
Mm.
And those are the times when you realize that, is it really worth?
Yeah.
If you're not able to take a half a day, or let's say whatever, 2-3 days of peace, then is it really worth all this trouble? Yes, you may be able to follow your passion, have fun, etc. But this is one aspect. And I genuinely feel that is why you'd probably be seeing the trend happening in the Americas and all, that the entrepreneurs there are very, very careful on their physical health. So
Yeah.
they will go for a walk, they will run, they'll meditate, hit the gym, virtually all the top guys. This is something that is still not prevalent in India.
Mm.
You'll find many of them sitting and slogging till 1 o'clock at night, getting up at 6 in the morning. They'll do a yoga day on whatever 21st June just to show कि हाँ मैं yoga कर रहा हूँ, but they're not in it.
Mm.
And interestingly, again, this is where the next part of the thing comes in. So she's into wellness. She has her own company now called Wellness Fusion. So the plan eventually is to merge, the leadership with wellness. So this was something, again, I think these are the two biggest learnings.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And unless we have the right kind of balance, then all the gains are actually of no use.
Absolutely.
Okay, now moving on, let's deep down into the specifics about the podcasting as a journey. So
Mhm.
you said you got influence by one of the leaders, and that was the inspiration you started off. And when you started your journey, did you realize that you're going to do it as a solo, or you're going to do it all interview based? And how did you pick up the particular niche subject to carry on with this?
So first I'll come to the name. Since you complimented the name, thank you.
Yeah.
So we were toying around with a few things, but so Arpita always used to say that my biggest asset is the intellect. So
Hmm.
that's how we realized it has to be something with brain. And the concept was that usually people tend to think in silos. So if you're into either corporate or you're in a startup, you'll be in very specific silos. So the concept was to think out of the box.
Hmm.
And therefore the catch came in, that therefore the name came in of Brainbox. So it was to do with, so we'll be just clear on one thing, it'll be something that will be focused on leadership.
Hmm.
uh, and I wanted it to be different. So I wanted to have leaders on the show, and the selfish reason for that was that I wanted to learn.
Hmm. Yes.
So that was the biggest reason. And in the process, what I came to know is that it also helps open doors. So, for example, in networking itself, right? So, I would probably not have been talking to you today had we both not been on hosting our podcast.
Yeah.
So, it helps network. If you want to reach somebody, so I don't think there may be 10 invitations I send on LinkedIn. I
Hmm.
don't think more than two of them do not accept it.
Right.
So, that is the power that you get when you are podcasting, which of course
Yeah.
I did not realize initially, to be honest. It was just a passion. So when I started, it was a solo series. So the plan
Hmm.
was just to have it solo. The first episode was very simple because that was primarily identifying and underlying that this is how the concept will be. The second was around my GadgetsKare, the startups and all that. So that was fine. By the time I reached the third or fourth episode, I realized I've run out of topics.
Hmm.
So that's when, so it was, a plan was to go in a season. So it was supposed to have, each season was supposed to have a separate theme on it, which I continued writing till season 12 or 13. So I had something called game changers, leaders, CIOs, etc., etc.
Hmm.
But the sixth episode, basically the first episode of season 2.
Hmm.
So I had my mentor, which I mentioned even in Wipro. So he's Ashish Wattal. That time he was the MD of Cisco.
Okay.
And I just asked him, I said, Sarji, I want to do this thing. Will you come on the show? And I have to say, he was one of those guys who, no questions asked. He's like, come on. I'm like, okay, ठीक है, ये है. So before that, what used to happen is it was all audio at that time. So I
Hmm.
was on Anchor, which is now Spotify, but that was Anchor. So I used to just record the thing and I'm done. And this was the first one with a guest. I came on the time that was announced and everything, and then I started logging. I think it was through Zoom or something. And then I tried it, and then I suddenly realized that I'm not able to record. Oh, Google Meet. Yes.
Okay.
I realized that I'm not able to record it.
Right.
And I'm like, ये क्या हो गया? So he was very, very patient, I have to admit. So about 10-15 minutes इधर उधर होता गया. Then finally, since he was in Cisco, he's like, you know what, Kaushik, नहीं हो रहा है. So I will record it on WebEx because ours is
Okay.
anyway there.
Right.
And after that, I'll share the link with you.
Okay.
When I got done. So this is how the first episode started.
Great.
Now, he was obviously very kind, so he gave it to me and everything. But when I actually made the episode live, and this is September end 21, or maybe October
Okay.
first week. So when I made it live, he got, I think, 30,000 likes on his LinkedIn post in 24 hours.
Fantastic.
And I had another 45 odd thousand different
Mm.
sets. Maybe 10,000 would be common, but otherwise it was a completely different set. So this is how, and then he literally asked me, he's like, Kaushik, ye kya hai? Matlab, is it, what is going on? So I'm like, okay, this is nice to see. So that's how it started. And then I realized that I'm actually onto something.
Okay.
So that's how then I decided to go the guest mode, because you get to learn a lot as well from the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's much more interactive. You're able to expand your network. That's how it. Plus,
Um,
I think another problem with solo is that you're not able to expand your network.
yes, absolutely.
So right now, for example, many of your audience don't know me and vice
Correct.
versa. So,
That's right.
but if it's purely solo, it won't happen.
And you have really invited a lot of very, very interesting leaders across the world, actually. That's very good, actually. Some of them I did have the chance to have a quick glance and listen to some of them, actually. So, in this journey of 81 episodes already, if you can talk about few really interesting one. The Ashish episode, of course, you said is really a good, inspiring story, if I can say so, because he's somebody who's actually helped you to
Mm.
put up the first interview. So similar to that, if you can come up with some top of the mind recall on what are the interesting episodes
Sure.
with some of the leaders.
So he's the only one, Ashish Bhatt is the only one who came twice on the show.
Okay.
So next time when he came is in his current role, where he was heading the entire Google Cloud practice and all. So that was every time I try something new. So I think that was the first time I was trying AI in the software, and I told him, do you want to come back on the show? And he's like, कुछ कर रहा है क्या नया? I said, हाँ. He's like, मुझे समझ में आ गया. That's why you're experimenting with me. Done, I'll come. So definitely these two episodes are there. Other than this, there was an excellent episode with Sanjay Vidyarthi.
Okay.
He has built multiple businesses.
Hmm.
Like he has built his own business in tier 2, tier 3 cities. He
Hmm.
has actually trained their staff, and it was similar to the hardware space, where they were actually developing things for Airtel, Jio, all these telco providers and all. And that was a session which should have original plan was to go for half an hour.
Hmm.
It actually went on for 1 hour 26 minutes.
Okay.
And that episode blew me away. When that happened, so the first startup which I mentioned, where I was working, so this podcast happened on a Saturday. I actually told my batchmate on a Sunday, that next day, that I want to resign.
Oh, great.
Because I realized, because his concept was that if you want to build a world-class company, the way
Right.
you do things have to be radically different.
Yes.
And somehow I didn't feel that I would be able to, do it there, which is
Correct.
when I decided to make the move. So that episode for sure was
So it's
absolutely
like a
mind-blowing.
catalytic episode, if I can put it that way.
Definitely, definitely.
Wow.
And there's another episode, uh, which again got me on the wellness drive.
Hmm.
So it was the 45th episode, if I remember right. So he's a CEO of a big EV company out here. Uh, and interestingly, he will be also coming probably for a second time very soon.
Okay. That's
But
nice.
yeah, so he came on the show. CEO, I know him. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time with him. We've done a few deals and all that also. Very nice, very calm. He's from ISB, very intellectual. And so we have our conversation again, the same 30 minutes was a slot. So we have a 20 minutes. And then he had said that I'm into spirituality and stuff. So I said, okay, so what's your take on this? And then he says that, you know what, Kaushik, uh, I have not disclosed this to anyone except my parents,
Hmm.
and I'm disclosing this on your show.
Oh, very
I'm
good.
like, I'm like, okay. So he says, I have actually tried committing suicide multiple times when I was young.
My goodness.
And believe me, I didn't know what to say. I was like, thankfully, there was audio, so he could not see my gaping mouth. But yeah, I mean, I was zapped because he's the probably one of the last few people I would have even imagined
Right.
that who would have tried to commit suicide when he was young. Unbelievable. So, and that's when the topic started. And that's again, so this was again, so this was the wellness piece, was a separate episode with which we launched season episode 46.
Okay.
So the 10th, 9th, 10th season, 10th season. So
Okay.
that is when it happened. And that is what again made me realize that wellness is something which people don't talk about.
I know. Yes.
So for me, it's different because Arpita's into the space. So
Hmm.
she has changed me dramatically from what I was initially. At the
Hmm.
time of marriage, I was like, typical Delhi wala types, ki mujhe nahi pata, I want the job done. I still have that trait when it comes to driving, but yeah, other than that, so because of that influence, I think I changed dramatically. And
Hmm.
it is something that I probably didn't realize to that extent. But
Okay.
when this show episode happened, that is when it really dawned on me that this is something that is, it should be talked about. And wellness genuinely is not talked about enough as it should be, at least in India, even today.
Hmm.
There is a stigma attached to it. Uh, so I think it's after that that even that Deepika Padukone and all of them started talking that yes,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
depression. So this all happened before that. So that was, I think, again a super episode.
Just I'm
Uh,
trying to connect one story here. Not story. In fact, I hosted someone who is from the learning challenges space.
mhm,
Just a couple of episodes back, his name is Dr. G. Sendil Kumar.
mhm,
That was on, I think, episode number 42nd.
mhm.
Very recently, I posted it. And he's from the space of learning disabilities or challenges for children.
Wow,
I think that is also an area which needs lot of attention and lot of awareness
true,
still in India. And probably that is the phase when all these mental challenges start early in life. Probably it start from that level of learning disabilities, learning challenges, which we don't even talk about. I mean, again, the stigma associated with
true.
that as an Indian society. So I think this is connecting. So I just thought of talking about it.
No, no,
So back to
absolutely,
you again.
absolutely, very true.
Sorry
No,
to
I mean,
disturb
no, no.
your
So,
flow.
so I think it's a very good example you gave because it genuinely matters because so we don't have kids, but we've seen a few, and that's when we also realize. In fact, today evening itself, me and Arpita were discussing this only. So it's something again. I think it needs to be talked about much more.
Mm, mm.
Definitely, definitely.
Okay. Sorry, I stopped your flow. Probably you were about to speak a few other episodes as well.
Oh, I can go on. So don't worry. I think.
Great. So, doing the podcast, 81 episodes already done, and of course, you're doing host of other things as well, including consulting um, and also helping your wife to do the business. Um, so, when it comes to your own intellectual wellness, if I can put it that way, what are the
Mhm.
things which keeps you intellectually updated or stimulated rather? apart from the podcasting? Of course, podcasting does help in this drive. But apart from that, what else you do? I mean, do you read certain types of books, or do you have some recommended books for audience, or what else you do?
So first about the podcasting itself, I love consuming podcasts
Great.
also. So I, on an average in a week, I'll spend at least 15 to 20 hours listening to
Hmm.
podcasts.
Very good.
And
Very
I
important
think
also.
exactly. I think again, so for example, mine is primarily around marketing. I follow Gary Vee, a few others here and there, depending on the topic. So right now, like it's more around the consulting piece. So that's why it's all around marketing, distribution. That is the key. Um, so for sure, consuming podcasts. The second one is also that I love writing.
Very good.
So I post a lot on LinkedIn. So one of the most common things most of my folks tell me is that, I log in and the first thing in my feed I see is Kaushik, 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 Kaushik. So I love writing. What happens with writing is that you are forced to think about it.
Yes.
So when you're thinking, you're able to actually put it down.
Hmm.
As soon as you're putting it on paper, on the screen, wherever, what actually then starts happening is that people then start realizing what your thought process is,
Hmm.
which therefore leads to you building your personal brand.
Correct.
So, which is what I keep telling people, that even if you just write for yourself, it doesn't matter, but just post. And this is something I think is a huge problem with youngsters also. It's always like, if I'm posting, that guy has got 10,000 likes, I should have at least 9,000. That's so off. It doesn't matter. You just write it for yourself. You do 100. So, for example, I don't think there was actually a time when I have removed. So, I had about 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. I removed it and got it down to 900,
Okay.
because I realized that these 900 people are the people who are actually engaging with it. So,
Correct.
I don't want that quantity and a vanity metric, which doesn't help.
Hmm.
So, it's better that you have a good network, strong network. And that is when I started my LinkedIn drive again from that 900 odd. So yes, I write a lot. That is good, and I also read.
Hmm.
My books are mainly biographies
Oh,
that I
very
read.
interesting. And some of them, if you can name,
So I read Indira Nui's
right? Very good. Interesting.
fabulous, fabulous book. I just finished. It was a biography on Dhirubhai Ambani. It's called The
Hmm.
Polyester Prince.
Hmm.
Again, fabulous book. I will be starting the book on Naval Ravikant. So
Hmm.
that should be interesting as well. So yes, I'm into, but I genuinely believe that the reason is that if you consume podcasts, you're reading, that is where you get the content to write.
Hmm.
So it's actually
That's right.
connected. And oh, and intellectually, I love playing. I think my favorite sport is chess.
Okay.
So
So
I,
you
in
find
fact,
some time to play chess.
yeah. So I just received an award where they told me that I have logged in on chess.com
Okay.
every day for 867 days.
My goodness, that's a quite a feat. Okay.
So it's my escape route. So it is my stress reliever. So Arpita keeps telling me, like, you're thinking all the time. Why in your right mind during when you want to relax, do you want to again go and play something like chess, which is taxing your mind? And I'm like, I genuinely don't know. This actually relaxes me. So that's my relaxation.
No, it is very much possible. Like for example, when we drive on the road, uh, many times actually we are thinking something else, and
Right.
intuitively we are driving.
Right.
Of course, we are consciously also looking at everything. Not that we are not conscious about it, but driving as a process
True.
is quite a bit intuitive, quite a bit subconscious, and probably that's what is exactly happening with you when you're playing your chess.
True. Possibly.
And if you played 800 plus days on a trot, then a lot of your moves are actually there on your subconscious mind already.
True. True. So I
Okay,
used to at times land up, while sleeping, I used to see the chess piece moving around, and I'm like, okay, बहुत ज़्यादा खेल लिया for the day. Stop.
that's very
But
good.
yes.
Great, great. So, Kaushik, fantastic. I think a lot of new things which I learned from this conversation, and of course, it's kind of a short one right now. But I would love to actually host both of you, both you and Arpita on this show once
Sure.
to understand her point of view as well in this journey together as Mr. and Mrs. Bose. That will be very interesting. So, any final thoughts for our audience? Primarily, my audience is targeted towards young students and young professionals, and of course, their parents.
Mhm.
So, you can say starting from about 10-year-old, 12-year-old children and going up to middle-aged people. So, any thoughts, any comments?
I think for youngsters, they should just try everything.
Hmm,
And of course, clear disclaimer, I don't mean drugs and stuff like that, but what I mean to say is that try different things in life.
correct.
uh, if Again, having said that, they should try it and figure out whether or not they're good at it.
Hmm,
It's not like you will be, so suppose with anything, let's say with podcasting, it's not like I was so I to be honest, I was very reluctant in coming into video podcasting. My
right.
first episode happened to be the 60th one,
Hmm,
where the lady she joined, so it was on my radar. I was like, I will do a video podcast. So she joined us from Sweden, Melanie Bukaro. So she said, so she's like, Kaushik, why are you not doing a video podcast? I'm like, yeah, I will. She said, you know what? You record this as a video podcast. If you
hmm,
don't like it, post as audio.
correct.
And I'm like, makes sense. Give me 10 seconds. So I went, fixed my background, switched on the camera, and I said, okay, let's start.
Right.
So, and interestingly, this was the 60th. The 42nd one was another one where I was a guest. And that
Hmm.
also happened to be a video podcast. And if you see that, I was an absolute disaster. I mean, on the video at least. Not that I'm not now, but yeah, that time I was a massive disaster. So I genuinely feel, so many people used to tell me कि अरे यार तुम ऐसे बैठे थे तुम वैसे. I said, who cares? You don't like it, don't see the next one, na?
Hmm.
So especially when you're young, I think that's when you can experiment with things. You can do different things. You should try. For young, not exactly young adults, but people who are young, still in in the middle part of their corporate journey, who are beginning, again the same thing holds. So it does not. So I have switched a lot of jobs. So I
Hmm.
have like stayed on for year and a half, moved, of course, because the pay, but also the roles, etc., that you get are immense. So I could have easily retired right now, sitting in Dubai. Like, many of my friends and colleagues are there, uh, very rich. So this is something that you again need to come back, get out of your comfort zone, try different things, and the best time to do that is when you're young.
Yeah.
So that is when you can experiment with startups. It doesn't work, you can always go back to corporates, try a solopreneurship, do the works. From the parents' perspective, I think it's very important that they should let them do it.
Very important.
So it still has the very huge culture in India that we still have is कि लोग क्या कहेंगे, अरे शर्मा जी के बेटे ने ये बोला and इनके बेटी ये कर रही है. So I think that has decreased. But I generally feel, because this is again something I picked from Gary V. And he used to say that if you actually insist on your kids doing something,
Hmm.
what will happen is when they grow up, they will actually turn out resenting you, because they
Yeah.
will not have done what they wanted to do. Not that if they would have done what they wanted to do, they would have succeeded. But even if they don't, they will still think, "Ki, because of you, I could not do this, and therefore I'm frustrated." So
Right.
the resentment will anyway happen. So it is better that let them do what they want. They might succeed. And even if they don't, then you figure it out to give them the support, but let them do it, let them experiment. So I think,
There's a interesting book. I will refer it on the show notes.
mhm,
It's called Range. It's basically talking about the same thing that as early as possible, try to figure out and do range of things
Exactly.
rather than just focusing yourself on a particular area, because you never know on which one you're going to do better than the others.
True.
And when you do a lot of things early in life, you have the better opportunity to be good at something really good,
Absolutely.
as a
Absolutely.
specialist going forward.
So I have to check out this book. Thank you.
Yes, I will share the detail of the show notes also. Of course, I will share with you otherwise.
Yeah.
So, Kaushik, a very interesting conversation. I know it is short. We need to have a larger conversation where I would like to invite Arpita as well along with you.
Sure.
And we will definitely talk about different topics during that episode. And for the timing, thank you for being with us and sharing all your knowledge. Very interesting journey of doing so many things um, in your mid career so far, I would say, and
Thank you.
a lot of opportunities still ahead of you. So wishing you a lot of success in all your ventures. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so very much, and wishing you the very best as well. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.